Well, good morning and welcome to today's webinar, taking a look at TRIP's new transportation report. The format is that I'll be providing comments on the latest TRIP report. My name is Rocky Moretti. I'm the Director of Policy and Research with TRIP. And we'll go ahead, I'll give my comments, then I'll call on Gary Salamito. Gary is the President and CEO of the North Carolina Chamber. And then following Gary's comments, we'll open it up for questions. Carolyn Kelly, my colleague who's on the call, will moderate that, and you can either through the chat or the raised hand function indicate you have a question. At that point, we'll elevate you to a panelist status so that you could ask your questions or follow-ups to either myself or Gary. We're going to be giving data for all of the large urban areas in this state, although in my initial comments, I'll provide data for the Charlotte and Research Triangle areas, but certainly in the question and answer period for journalists from other areas of the state, just point that out, and I'll be happy to, at that point, to also provide data for your area as part of the conference in the question and answer period. TRIP as an organization was founded in 1971. Annually, we do 10 to 15 state reports similar to this, looking at the condition of a state's transportation system, its use, its traffic safety, and also its reliability. We also put out national reports looking at a lot of these similar issues at a national level. Today's report, Moving North Carolina Forward, is based on the latest data from the North Carolina Department of Transportation, also the Federal Highway Administration, and the U.S. Department of Transportation. Key findings of the report are, with North Carolina continuing to experience significant growth and vehicle travel in the state returning to pre-COVID-19 levels, North Carolina faces a significant challenge in providing a reliable, safe, and well-maintained transportation system. Recognizing this, the North Carolina legislature last year approved a significant boost in transportation funding, which, along with the previous year's approval of federal surface transportation program, has really allowed the state to move forward with a significant number of projects to improve the safety, the reliability, and the condition of the state's transportation system. But the report also found that the state's long-term transportation funding sustainability is threatened by a significant increase in highway construction inflation, and also by the increasing fuel efficiency of vehicles, and also the increasing adoption of electric vehicles, which is going to reduce the effectiveness of the state and federal motor fuel taxes in terms of raising revenue for transportation. In 2022, the North Carolina legislature approved House Bill 103, which increased the use of state sales tax for transportation. That over the next decade will bring an additional $7.2 billion into North Carolina in transportation funding. The previous year at the federal level, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was approved, also in providing a significant boost in funding in North Carolina for transportation. Combined, those additional funds are allowing the North Carolina Department of Transportation to increase investment in road preservation by 17% and into bridge preservation by 22%. North Carolina continues to be one of the fastest growing states in the country, with population in North Carolina increasing by 33% since 2000. From 2000 to 2019, we saw a similar 37% increase in vehicle travel. During the early parts of the pandemic, travel plummeted in North Carolina by as much as 38% in those early months of the pandemic. And by 2021, vehicle travel had returned in North Carolina to 4% below the level pre-pandemic. And just looking at the early months of 2023, we see a significant increase in vehicle travel in North Carolina, bringing the state back to vehicle travel levels seen before the pandemic. The TRIP report points out that approximately 1/3 of North Carolina's major roads have pavements in poor or mediocre condition, costing state motorists $3.7 billion in additional vehicle operating costs. Those are costs as you're driving on rougher roads, that's accelerating vehicle depreciation most critically, which obviously reduces the lifespan of a vehicle, but also increases routine maintenance and also additional fuel consumption in tire wear. In the Research Triangle area, the report found that 13% of pavements are in poor condition and 25% are in mediocre condition, costing the average driver in the Research Triangle area an additional $477 annually. In the Charlotte area, 16% of pavements of major roads are in poor condition and an additional 28% are in mediocre condition, costing the average Charlotte area driver an additional $559 annually in additional vehicle operating costs. The report noticed that across the state, 7% of North Carolina's bridges are rated in poor condition and in need of immediate repairs, and 52% are rated in fair condition. In the Research Triangle area, the report finds that 5% of bridges are rated in poor condition and in need of immediate repair, and 51% are rated in fair condition. In the Charlotte area, the report finds that 5% of bridges are rated in poor condition and in need of immediate repair, and 51% are rated in fair condition. And with vehicle travel back in North Carolina back to pre-COVID levels, the report estimates that in 2022, the cost of traffic congestion in North Carolina in the value of lost time and wasted fuel due to traffic congestion is $4 billion annually. In the Research Triangle area, the trip report estimates that the average motorist spent an additional 36 hours stuck in traffic and wasted 14 gallons of fuel in 2022, costing them in the value of lost time and wasted fuel $897. The trip report found that in the Charlotte area, the average motorist in 2022 spent an additional 47 hours annually stuck in traffic and wasted 19 gallons of fuel due to traffic congestion, costing them an additional $1,342. The trip report also includes a list of the least reliable sections of highways across the state. And we see that when you look at that list in the report, you'll see portions of US roads 29, 70, and 74, and interstates 40, 77, and 485. The report also took a look at traffic safety. And unfortunately, what we've seen in North Carolina, we've seen across the country with traffic fatalities actually increasing. In North Carolina, traffic fatalities from 2019 to 2021 increased by 18%, and the actual rate of traffic fatalities per mile of travel increased by 23%. Unfortunately, what we saw across the country was that traffic fatalities increased beginning with the pandemic, largely due to driving behavior that essentially was a riskier behavior. The traffic fatality numbers, which in North Carolina are over 1,600 traffic fatalities a year, are clearly unacceptable. The U.S. Department of Transportation, working with state transportation departments, have put together a comprehensive national roadway safety strategy that is going to be critical in bringing these really terrible numbers to bring them lower. And that safe systems approach is really going to take all of the transportation and related agencies across the state of North Carolina working together towards ensuring that we have safer drivers driving at safer speeds, we have safer vehicles, we have improved roadway safety features applied to the transportation system across the state, and improved post-care crash. And those additional roadway safety features really have to address all of the travelers out there, including motorists, pedestrian, and bicyclists. The report also points out that the state's economy is critically reliant on the quality of the state's transportation system. The value of freight moved annually in North Carolina is $795 billion. And by 2045, it's anticipated that the value of freight moved in the state from or to sites in North Carolina will increase by 67%. The report includes a list of the 10 worst bottlenecks for freight across the state, which includes portions of interstates 26, 40, 77, and 85. To address these significant ongoing transportation challenges, the North Carolina Department of Transportation has proceeded with numerous projects across the state. This includes, since 2018, $4.6 billion in increased capacity on numerous transportation routes across the state, including the Fayetteville Outer Loop, the Greensboro Loop, the I-485 Charlotte Beltway, excuse me, and the Winston-Salem bypass, the Wilmington bypass, portions of I-85, and the Goldsboro Salem Parkway, and the Jamestown bypass. So the state has proceeded with numerous expansions of critical corridors across the state. The state also maintains 4 regional and 1 statewide transportation management centers, which help reduce congestion by providing driver information, by coordinating emergency services when there are incidents. In fact, the state's safety patrol program is every year helping approximately 36,000 stranded motorists across the state. The state also has a program to help urban areas retime traffic signals on critical routes. And the state has also adopted a complete streets program that ensures that bicycle, pedestrian, and transit facilities are provided on routes where that's appropriate. And the state also works with the state's 25 urban and 80 rural transit agencies to also provide additional options for travelers across the state. But North Carolina and all transportation agencies across the country are being impacted by significant highway construction inflation. The latest data from the Federal Highway Administration finds that during 2021 and the first 3 quarters of 2022, there's been a 50% increase in the cost of highway traffic construction. And the state's transportation reliability is also being challenged by increasing fuel efficiency standards and the adoption of electric vehicles. Both of these are going to impact the ability of state and federal government to collect transportation taxes for motor fuels. In conclusion, the state's transportation challenges will require that state and local governments continue to increase their investment in improving the safety, reliability, and condition of their transportation system. With that, I will pass we'll introduce Gary Salamito for his comments. Gary?
Thank you, Rocky, and thank you to Trip for all the great work you do to give us the information and data we need to keep North Carolina competitive. And also thank you for everyone that took time to be on the call today from the media. Your time is much and interest is much appreciated. I'm Gary Salamito, President and CEO of the NC Chamber. And at the Chamber, our mission is to research, develop, advocate, and communicate for those policies and solutions that make North Carolina the best place to do business and to live and work and raise your family. And transportation infrastructure investment is essential and critical to North Carolina continuing to be a leading place for private sector job growth in our country. It's intentional that we are here, that North Carolina is leading, and transportation infrastructure investment has been an essential part of why North Carolina is attracting the kind of private sector jobs that create healthy communities all across our state. In order to do that, we need to make sure that that investment, that courageous investment that has occurred for so long now to keep our roads safe and to keep commerce flowing, to keep people safe as they go back and forth to work, and children safe as they go back and forth to school, we need to stay ahead of that. Back in 2020, we launched Vision 2030, and we said about 3 million people were going to come here by the year 2030. When we launched it in 2012, well, guess what? They're here, and there's continuing to come. And the infrastructure investments we need to make in transportation need to keep occurring and occur now. And we have to have that courageous leadership that got us here. We're going to need that courageous leadership to invest in infrastructure, not just for tomorrow, but for generations to come, for my children, for my grandchildren, for your grandchildren. It's going to be essential that we make these continued investments. We commend our state leaders for what they've done, for the leadership they've shown, but leading takes additional courage. And that courage is required to put the resources behind now our transportation infrastructure so that we can continue to lead, continue to grow, and continue to be the best place in the country, if not the world, to live, work, and to raise your family. Our transportation funding formula relies heavily on our motor fuels tax. And as we all know, that's going to be dwindling over time. And so we have to continue to look for alternative ways to diversify our revenue sources to pay for these key transportation infrastructure investments. There's never going to be a single solution, and there shouldn't be. But there should be a number of different solutions that are reliable, predictable, affordable for the long term, not only to build the roads, but to maintain them, to make sure that the bridges are built in the right places, but to maintain them and keep them safe for all of our citizens, keep our supply chains running, and keep our people going back and forth to those good jobs that we're creating in communities all across North Carolina. Our state's leaders started to recognize that back in as early as 2015, 2017, have continued to make it a priority every year. And we're going to continue as NC Chamber to keep it as a top priority for us to make sure that we continue that infrastructure investment for today and tomorrow. Workers, employers, school systems, emergency responders, all all rely on our transportation infrastructure system to get them to where they need to go, to get their products into their manufacturing facilities and the manufactured products out, to get their children to schools and daycares all across our state. The roads have to be there, they have to be safe, and they have to be reliable, and they have to be affordable. And diversifying our revenue sources further is essential to making all of that happen. Continue to set the conditions for growth. It's not easy to become the best state in the country for business. It's hard work, and a lot of people work together. Policymakers, TRIP and its good information that we rely on, businesses from all over our state, but it's even harder to stay here. And the hard part about staying here is making those courageous investments now to make sure that people are safe going back and forth to work, and that our products can get out to market, and our raw materials can get in, and people, wherever they're working, whether they're working in an office or working from home, can get to where they need to be to take care of their families. So you can rely on the North Carolina Chamber for its continued advocacy and support, and making this a top priority for our business community, for our workers, for our citizens of North Carolina. And we're going to continue to encourage courageous efforts by our elected officials, by our policy leaders, by the folks in DOT and the House and the Senate and in the executive branch to continue to make this a priority for the betterment of our citizens and for the betterment of our communities all across North Carolina. So in conclusion, thank you to TRIP for your continued leadership. Thank you to the businesses across our state for their leadership. Thank you to our elected officials and all those great workers that work in our agencies that are making this happen for communities all across North Carolina. I look forward to any discussion and any questions, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Gary. Carolyn, if you want to, I'll let you explain how we'll handle the question and answers.
Sure. Thanks, Rocky, and thanks, Gary. I'm Carolyn Kelly. I'm the Director of Communications and Research for TRIP. I'll be moderating a Q&A if there are any questions from reporters for either Rocky or for Gary. The way that will work is that if you've got a question, you can use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen, or you can also submit your question via the chat function that you also see at the bottom. So you can start to use those functions now if you have any questions. While we wait for some questions to come in, I'll note that right now the full report that TRIP is releasing today is available on our website at tripnet, tripnet.org. You can find the full report there, as well as news releases for each of the urban areas that are covered in the report. There's also some short videos that Rocky has recorded that are specific to each of the 5 urban areas for which we have data in the report. So if you're looking for just a short snippet of data for your local city, you can find it there. And we'll also have the recording of this news conference available on our website in roughly 30 minutes or so. So as I said, if there are any questions, you can feel free to use the raise hand function or enter them into the chat now. I don't see any questions that have come in as of yet. So Rocky or Gary, if there's anything else you'd like to add while we see if there's any questions, feel free.
Yeah, I guess I would ask Gary a question, if that's all right, Gary. You mentioned the state's high ranking in terms of business climate. I'm curious, in your position, I'm sure trying to bring jobs into North Carolina, for the large employers, how does transportation fit in? How critical is that in terms of your ability to attract businesses to North Carolina?
Yeah, the top 4 things that attract people in North Carolina are talent, and transportation infrastructure investment. So it's about people and being able to get those people to and from the work from jobs. And that includes airports, it's road, rails, ports, water, all of those things that require commerce to flow and people to get to where they need to be. It's a top priority. It has been a top priority. And we continue to survey every month CEOs. We survey our members, we survey workers. We just did one surveyed workers, and a key essential piece of our quality of life here is good investment, regular investment, consistent investment in our transportation infrastructure network. It's a key competitive disadvantage for us right now. Other states are looking, the secret sauce is out, right? So we've got to continue to lead and stay one step ahead. And this is a key part of it.
Thanks, Gary. I see we've got a question from Sydney Bushell with WWAY. Sydney, I've elevated you to a panelist. So if you unmute your line, you can ask your question of Rocky and Gary.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for taking my question. My question is more for Rocky, I believe. If you could speak about briefly about the conditions in Wilmington, maybe specifically talking about the bridges, and if there's anything in regards to the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge, as I know that's kind of a hot topic down here. So
Certainly. In terms of the bridge, I know that we've gotten comments from the local Chamber of Commerce and also the Transportation Department would probably be the best one to get more specifics on an individual bridge. I'll go ahead though and give the key numbers, if you will, for the Wilmington area. The trip report found that 3% of bridges in the Wilmington area are currently rated in poor condition and in need of immediate repair, and another 37% are rated in fair condition. Trip report also found that 16% of major roadways in the Wilmington area are in poor condition and 25% are in mediocre condition, costing the average driver in the Wilmington area $544 annually in additional vehicle operating costs. The trip report found that the annual cost of traffic congestion in the Wilmington area is $646 annually per motorist. That's the value of lost time and also wasted fuel, because we're estimating that the average driver in the area is spending an additional 26 hours annually stuck in traffic and wasting an additional 11 gallons of fuel due to traffic congestion.
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure, by all means.
I've got another question from Andrew James. Andrew, I've elevated you to a panelist. You should be able to ask your question in just a moment.
Can you all hear me? Sorry, my meeting dropped out for just a second.
Yes, go right ahead.
So I work at WLOS in Asheville. So I wanted to see if we could focus in on Asheville and Western North Carolina. A big concern that we hear a lot here is the traffic and safety that's associated with the I-26 work that's happening right now. So if you have any insight into that specifically, we'd love to hear that. Sure.
In terms of the actual work itself, I mean, obviously the first challenge is work zone safety. And we just saw just last month a terrible tragedy in the Baltimore area. And so obviously work zone safety is the most compelling issue. Certainly these projects are proceeding because they're going to have tremendous value to the region in terms of improving reliability and also improving safety. But a lot of inconvenience comes with that. And we've also seen through the COVID pandemic that unfortunately what we have seen is drivers being more aggressive. And we haven't really seen that recede. And so it's really, everyone has a role to play. You know, we need the investment, we need the improvements, but the public also has to respect the need for those projects and also the importance that they drive safely and respectfully. I'm going to go ahead also and give all of the data that we have for the Asheville area consistent with the report. The trip report finds that in the Asheville area, 6% of bridges are rated in poor condition and in need of immediate repair, and another 61% are rated in fair condition. The trip report finds that in the Asheville area, 11% of major roadways have pavement in poor condition, and another 16% are rated in fair condition. This is costing the average Asheville driver $390 annually in additional vehicle operating costs because of driving on rough roads. The trip report finds that the annual cost of traffic congestion to the average Asheville area motorist is $687 as a result of losing 26 hours annually stuck in traffic and wasting an additional 10 gallons of fuel annually.
Thank you so much.
Oh, by all means.
We have one other question from Jamie Boulay. Jamie, I'll also elevate you to a panelist and you'll be able to ask your question. Nope. That doesn't quite seem to be working, but oh,
If you-
Jamie says he does not have a microphone. So Jamie had submitted the question to the chat, so it may be a question that others have as well, so I'll just read it. I said in the Wilmington area, 41% of major roads are in poor condition. What does the term major roads refer to? And do these stats include roads managed by local governments or just NCDOT managed roads?
Sure. Major roadways, in terms of a bureaucratic terminology, are what the Federal Highway Administration would call an arterial roadway. There's not a hard engineering definition, but essentially the way to look at those are the major grid pattern of the region. So essentially, a roadway that has traffic lights is quite likely going to be an arterial. So it is the major set of roadways, and they are maintained by state and local governments. It would include the interstates, highways in the region, certainly, but really all of the other major roadways. The way I would look at it is once you've left your suburban community, you're probably now driving on an arterial, which would be one of the major roads in the region.
Thanks, Rocky. I don't see any other questions or hands raised at the moment.
Okay, well, I'm going to certainly be available the rest of the day. If as you're reporting this, you have additional questions, by all means, feel free to reach out back to Trip. I want to thank Gary for taking time to join us this morning, and certainly also thank everyone who has gone ahead and logged into the webinar today. We certainly appreciate your interest and ability to help communicate these important messages. Gary, do you have any final comments?
Couldn't have said it better, Rocky. Thank you, and thank Trip for all they're doing. I appreciate the media's interest today and look forward to continued discussions.
Well, thanks again. We're going to conclude this and as final message, remind everyone how critical it is that they drive safely out on North Carolina's roads. Thank you.